Thank you very much. My name is Lynda Kiejko. I'm a two-time Olympian in the sport of pistol shooting. I'm also the president of the Alberta Handgun Association, which is an organization that fosters and promotes the ISSF, otherwise known as Olympic, style of competitions. I come from a family of Olympians in pistol shooting. Both my father and one of my sisters were both Olympians. I am very grateful for this opportunity to appear before the committee today. However, I'm also very angry and I'm also sad. I'm angry that my tax dollars are being wasted on policy that doesn't increase public safety. I'm angry that no matter how well I follow the laws keep changing, and the law changes are impacting me directly and people like me. I take great pride in representing my country on the world stage, as do all athletes, and I'm sad that due to the handgun ban, the Order in Council, C-71, and this proposed legislation, that I will not be able to represent Canada on the world stage. That athletes who come after me won't even have an opportunity to compete, as they will have no access to competition firearms. I am angry that this government has no concern for actual safety, because if there was concern for safety, if there was actual effort made to increase public safety, I likely would not be here as a witness. And that because of your measures, because if you had interests of public safety in mind, the measures that you did would not affect me as a vetted firearms owner. Your measures would then affect criminals. None of that I could see of that's being proposed in C-21 or the withdrawn amendments made measurable improvements for public safety. Criminals have criminal behavior, and no matter what the law says, criminals will continue doing what they do. Instead of reducing crime, your handgun bans, Order in Councils, and efforts to virtue signal that you're doing something increase my paperwork by 6 weeks to represent Canada on the world stage. I now pay the government for the privilege of returning home with my guns, which are my property, on every return home to Canada. The extra paperwork I do does not make you, my community, or my children safer than they were before your measures were put into place. But it is a waste of my tax dollars. Instead of preparing to compete against my peers from the Ukraine, Greece, South Korea, France, among many others, I'm doing paperwork for the privilege of not being arrested or having my competition equipment confiscated at the border when I return home. These measures also remove any opportunity I have to take up hunting, something that my father did, that is inherently a Canadian tradition. Not only do I need to have my PAL, I need to take a hunter safety course and plan out details of where I would hunt. Banning semi-automatic rifles removes this opportunity. Almost all hunters use semi-automatic rifles with the same magazine capacity as my competition handgun. The course that PAL holders are required to take, on top of hunter education courses, make hunters and competitive shooters safer with firearms than the majority of the population. I am constantly having my background checked as a PAL holder. I have small children. Firearm safety is so very important to me. My firearms are not a public safety threat, and neither am I, nor are my teammates, my family, and my friends. The measures that this government is taking will destroy competitive shooting sports in Canada, and there are so many more than just the narrow few that make it to the Olympics, and it will destroy our hunting culture to provide for our own families. As Canadians, we are all proud to see a Canadian competing on the world stage, bringing home a medal. That will end in the shooting sports because of the bans put already into place or that are currently being proposed. Removing a tool does not decrease violence. My sports equipment, my hunting tools are not a public safety threat. Thank you very much.
Of you. Ms. Kiejko, I have a few questions for you concerning your experience. We know, of course, the Liberals have brought forward successive gun bans, certainly began with C-71 and the May 2020 OIC that was subsequently added to with hundreds of models. We then saw the so-called handgun freeze, which we know is a long-term ban, and now the latest ban, which is certainly one of the largest hunting rifle bans in Canadian history. And so now we're talking about that since it's been withdrawn. But what I hear from sports shooters and from hunters is that they feel that they are being punished and attacked. And I'm wondering, as an Olympian who's represented Canada as a sports shooter on 2 occasions, and from a family of Olympic sports shooters, I'm wondering if you can share your experience on the impact these successive bans have had on you.
I would say definitely there's a direct impact on competitive shooters specifically. Again, I didn't used to have to do a whole stack of extra export and import paperwork to be able to leave the country and come back in the country with my own firearms that are registered within this country that they have already been imported. I now pay to import them every time I come back and back home from a competition. I do know one of my teammates is trying to look into avenues to acquire a new competition firearm and is receiving significant challenges. So essentially, like, new equipment comes on the market and it has new technology, better equipment, better competition, better performance, and we are now going to be banned from that. We're going to have a significant challenges, if at all possible, to be able to acquire those. There's only a very few importers who will even take on the challenge of trying to work through the rules to be able to find those exemptions where they're listed for Olympians. However, being an Olympian is one thing. I mean, I'm the only pistol Olympian that has attended the last two Olympics. If we're only talking about supporting Olympians, you're talking about supporting me, and that's about it. It means that you ban all of my teammates who are looking to make the Olympics. If we're talking about Olympic sports, there's a huge amount of people who are involved in these sports, but now we're shutting down the opportunities to participate in those sports. We're refusing people even the access to the equipment to be able to even try it. So I see it as a significant impact.
Thank you very much. And just more on that, I think, perhaps folks that aren't familiar with firearms at all, maybe they think that all guns are just created equal. They're all the same. A gun's a gun, but certainly that's absolutely not the case. And anyone who used firearms at all would know that. And to your point, this is a vital tool, obviously, to competing at the Olympic level. We also have ipsec and other international competitive bodies and national competitive bodies. So to your point, if you're not able to sort of hold the firearm before you buy it, if you're not able to buy new parts for it, or it's very difficult to do so, to me, this really seems like it will certainly be an elimination of competitive sports shooting in Canada, something that's been around for a very long time, and certainly the Conservatives are very proud of to see you, Ms. Kiejko, as an Olympian representing us on the world stage. So given these restraints, do you feel that there will be any more Olympians following you, or what is the impact this is going to have on Olympic and competitive sports shooting in Canada?
Considering how hard it is to make the Olympics to begin with, I mean, we're talking, I mean, at any Olympic Games, there's maybe 300 athletes in the entire country that actually make the Olympic Games. So we're talking about a very small amount of people to begin with. So when we're talking about shooting sports, I mean, you cut off the access to be able to produce Olympian, you need a huge mass of amount of people competing in who push each other to do better, to strive for better achievements, for better performances. And if you cut off the access to the competition, the training, the teammates, you essentially obliterate any opportunity we have of putting an Olympian into the Olympics, let alone onto the podium. You need the opportunity, you need the training and availability.
And you had mentioned a few countries that compete at the Olympic level in sports. I mean, there's many of them, but can you just list off a few of the top competitors in the world on sport shooting?
Some of the top competitors, off the top of my head, there's definitely in my event specifically, we've got the Ukraine, we've got Greece, we've got South Korea. There's definitely, like China's going to be in there as well. Some of the other ones that are kind of in the top list are probably escaping me.
Yeah, thank you.
Throughout the European, France as well.
France and Germany. Yeah, thank you very much. So Canada will no longer be able to compete, in essence, against those other countries that are certainly supported by their governments, unlike ours. It's very disappointing, and certainly Conservatives are very proud that you have competed at the Olympic level and represented Canada with such pride and integrity. So I just want to put that on the record, how proud we are of you, Ms. Kiejko, for what it's worth. And just to conclude, a few other things. My understanding is, out of all the Olympic sports, actually sports shooting is one of the safest ones. And as well, as you mentioned, you yourself are not a violent person, yet you're being treated like you are. So just in our concluding half a minute, can you just comment on a few of those things?
Yeah, I think there was a study that was done in 2016, and I actually looked up. There's a new one that was actually done in 2020 as well, that literally listed off statistics of injuries in different events and different sports. And surprise, surprise, shooting doesn't have any, which I think is a huge testament to the safety culture that we have in shooting sports. That it's a safety culture. We're always going to be safe, and we're not going to have those injuries or incidents that are going to be there. So there are studies that are available actually prove that
Much,
point.
Chair.
Thank you. Very
Thank you, Ms. Kiejko, for joining us again and providing us with your testimony. I had a few questions about Olympic participation. You participate in the Summer Olympics, and then we also have Olympians who participate in Winter Olympics in the biathlon. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, of the athletes who attend, the first Olympics we went to was in 1908. How many participate in pistol shooting with you?
Since 1908, I
No, like
I
how
don't
many?
have the number in front of me.
That's okay. That's okay. But how many go to the Olympics with you when you go?
So the last two Olympics, I was the only pistol shooter. Previous to that, in 2012, there was only one pistol shooter as well. I think that we've had a pistol shooter in the Olympics every Summer Olympics. I'm going to say since at least probably the early 80s, when they kind of split off men and women's events. They've definitely had women in every event, I think, since 1984. There was even a gold medal at the 1984 Olympics in women's pistol shooting. There's also been a long history of male pistol shooters as well. We have, since they changed the rules for how we qualify, there's been smaller shooting teams, I think, since 1996, based on how qualifications work. But prior to that, there was a significant shooting teams across the rifle, the pistol, and the shotgun disciplines that are available within the shooting sports. And I think I could be wrong, but we've been participating as Canada in shooting sports since the early 1900s for sure.
The numbers I got were 16 in pistol shooting and 84 in the with long guns. So we're not talking about a lot of people here, but there is an exemption for elite Olympic shooters like yourself, is there not?
Sure there is, but how do you become an elite pistol shooter without training? How do you become an elite pistol shooter? Do you just come off the street and say, you know what, I think I'm going to be an Olympic volleyball player today? It takes years of training. It takes years of work and effort to put into it. There's the rule of about 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything, and yet we're going to limit the people who are allowed to have an exemption to the people who are already champions, who are already winning, who are already Olympians. That means that you get rid of the entire sport. How do you prove that you want to become a professional or Olympian in something before you actually can prove that you are?
But what we're talking about is 16 people in the entire country, and right now it's just you. You're
talking about 16 people who become Olympians. Do you understand how many other people who are competing against them? There's a huge amount of people competing against them. We have teams. I have teammates that I train with all the time who have not made the Olympic level yet, but yet you're going to restrict their equipment to say that they can never achieve? That makes no sense. It's like telling soccer players that you want to be a soccer player, but you have to be an Olympic soccer player before you can actually have a ball. That's what you're saying.
It's not. I mean, gun ranges are still allowed to import, buy, and sell, import and buy pistols as well. But I think, at some point, we as a society need to decide which is more important. And with all I do commend you for representing your country, and I thank you for doing that. But we also need to look at, as a society, whether handguns are something that we want to see continue to proliferate in our country, and make the decision that you will still have the ability to use them, Ms. Kiejko, but our government has determined that we would like to see a handgun freeze.